Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Bianca Bush, psychiatrist, mom, educator, and today I'm doing part 2 of I Failed My Boards series. And if you're watching this, you might be preparing for a retake yourself, or maybe you're terrified of failing. Either way, you're not alone. Failing my exam, I failed more than one exam, has been really humbling. And it's been, a clarifying moment in my career, the times that I have failed, right? So part 1 was about the emotions and what failure has taught me and sort of the things that I've done in response. But today is about strategy. And so I'm going to share exactly how I approached my retake, the materials I've used, the routine I built, and how I planned my time. And then I'm going to also talk about the 4 mindset shifts that really changed things for me so that I could go back in and take this test after having failed. So, pardon me, you're going to see me look down and look at my notes, and that's just because I don't want to miss anything that I've planned to tell you, because I feel like this is important. The reason why I talk about this and say it and have come up with a way of helping people is because I know that I'm not alone. When I talk to other folks, physicians, residents, med students, students of all kinds, one thing that I've learned is that not a lot of people are talking about how they failed, right? They just they're quiet about it, they're embarrassed, they're shy. And so I am here to share that it happens, you can move on, you can still be great at what you do, even if you don't pass your exam the first time. So before we jump in, I want to make sure that you subscribe to this channel, tap the bell so that you can be notified for other times I post important videos about how to manage anxiety around exams. So let's get into it. All right, so why did I do things differently the second time that I'm taking my child boards? As you know, if you follow me, I took my adult psychiatry boards, didn't pass by 1 point, had to retake them. And I recently took my child psychiatry boards 2 years ago, and I've recently retaken them. Stay tuned till the end to hear whether or not I passed. So the first time that I took my child psychiatry boards, I studied the way that I thought I was supposed to. You may have too many resources. You've got more than one question bank. Maybe you're looking at more than one book, and then you've got lots of voices, right? Your peers like, okay, what are you using? All right, what should I use? What do you think I should use, right? So you've got all of this in your mind influencing the way that you're studying. There's also a lot of pressure, right? If your exam is like mine, maybe it's only offered annually. For some of the docs that I talk to, or physicians or residents, their exams are only offered every 2 years. So that's a lot of pressure that you're putting on yourself to pass. And then this happens, you might have too little rest, and sometimes that's unavoidable with the busy lives that we lead. You may be working, you may have call, you may have family, you may have a newborn, which has been the case for me several times that I've taken this test, right? But when I sat down to plan the retake for this exam, I realized that I needed a plan that I could actually execute. I needed something that was simple, I needed something that was calm, and that was intentional, right? And so for a long time, I thought it was best to just work harder. And this is cliche, right? We should be working smarter, not harder. We are sort of conditioned to work hard, and that's the thing that's going to give you the best output. Well, not this time. I said, you know what? I honestly don't have all the time to work super duper hard. And of course I'm working hard, but let me think about how I can work smarter this time. So I built a plan that honored the fact that I'm a working adult, I'm a mom, and this time that I'm taking the exam, I'm a mom of not 1, but 2 kids. And I think at the time of taking the exam, my baby was 6 months, right? So I'm studying with a sort of a brand new baby, and I'm also a human being. I'm not a machine. So I wasn't going to try to reinvent myself as a student, as a person. I'm going to work with what I had. I just needed to focus and execute a plan. And again, at the end, we're going to find out, did I pass? Did I fail? So let's talk about what I did differently. Number 1. Materials. This is where I find that we can end up sabotaging ourselves, right? Because we want to be thorough. We are trained to be the best student possible. And what does that mean? Making sure you have access to all of the knowledge. And so when I talk to students, and even thinking about myself, I think, okay, I want to make sure I have everything. I want to make sure I have the best Q bank. I want to make sure I have the best prep materials, right? But what I did this time was I decided to go with one Q bank, and I actually ended up going with Beat the Boards. And for psychiatry, I'd used that before. I didn't get any additional books. I'm not a textbook girly. I know that about myself now. There's a time in the past where I'd be like, oh, let me get through all of these chapters. No, I have the Beat the Boards for the studying and for the Q bank. I even tried to incorporate some Anki, and to be honest, I made cards that I didn't end up using them because I just didn't have time. But I told myself this time around, I'm gonna get through all of the Beat the Boards videos. Last time I didn't, I just did the Q bank, but this time, this is the one thing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it all the way through. And I knew as a psychiatrist that once I got to the exam, having done that Q bank in its entirety, I knew I would feel confident. What happens sometimes is you get your materials, you switch halfway through, you're like, I don't think this is working, so you're gonna switch halfway through, and then you only end up getting through half of this thing or half of that thing, and then you get to test day, and your mind can start to play tricks on you and say to yourself, well, I only did half of this Q bank, I only did half this, am I actually ready? So I stuck with that one thing. I didn't add anything on midway through, and I didn't let panic lead me to buying more course materials or more Q banks, right? I said, this is the thing, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it in its entirety, and I planned that out. So yes, that is what I used. You will find the thing that's right for you. So I encourage you to find, if this exists for your field, one Q bank or one set of lectures that is thorough, and then go through them all. Obviously, it may make sense to augment at some point if there are concepts that you don't understand, but get something that you can do. If you're watching this video, you probably are working and studying to take this test. We don't have time to do all of the Q banks and read all of the books and do all of the lectures from different sources. Okay, I think you got that point. So again, when you overconsume materials to manage your anxiety, it just doesn't work. And so again, you think if I've got one more resource, that's the thing that's gonna fix it, right? But that actually doesn't. It's just spreading your attention between many different places. It prevents mastery, right? I talked about that. I said that already, that if you can get through the whole thing, you're going to feel confident, but you're going to also feel like you mastered the material. And having too many resources can also create burnout, right? Because you're trying to fit in so much content. We have a finite amount of time that we can study if we're working, if we're parents. And then it can confuse your brain with different sort of learning styles or teaching styles. So that's one thing I didn't mention, was when you're choosing what you're going to go with, you want to make sure you're getting material and content that speaks to your specific, most effective way of learning. You know, are you a visual learner? Do you need videos? Are you auditory? You know, videos can help for that. Are you a read-write? Maybe you do need the textbook and to really just make your own notes and outline, and that's effective for you. Excellent. But you want to stick with what's going to be most effective and not confuse your brain with different styles. So again, the biggest shift for me was realizing that my brain didn't need more information. It needed the repetition, it needed to solidify, and it needed something that was simple. So the practical tip for you: choose one primary learning resource, one question bank, a supplemental tool for weak areas, commit to those, and go. Maybe your primary learning resource and the Q bank are combined. That's always nice. But again, to repeat, one primary learning source, one question bank, and then one supplemental tool for your weak areas. All right. If you want help organizing your materials and your schedule, as we're thinking about planning for the time that you retake the test or take it for the first time, I have built a Notion study planner specifically for residents, fellows, physicians who are studying for their boards. You can download it. It's in this description below, $20. It's the exact system that I use to organize myself. And the reason why I love it is because you can move things around. If you're writing your schedule with paper and pencil, if you need to shift because your kid got sick and you couldn't study that day, or surprise, you took a weekend trip that you didn't plan on it, which I highly encourage, enjoying yourself even during the study period, you can easily shift your schedule instead of having to scrap the whole plan that you made and start from scratch. So anyway, Notion Study Planner, template, use it, duplicate it, customize it, it's yours, link below. All right, let's talk about what I did differently in terms of time planning or managing my time. And this is huge, okay? I realized that the first time that I took the exam, first time I took my adult psychiatry boards, I definitely was rushing. I didn't have enough time. I was tired. I was doing too many things, right? And so this is a lesson that I've carried with me, right? When you're exhausted, you're burned out, your brain isn't fresh, it's not going to be able to retain things. And so this time, what I did was I took the exam originally in 2023. Didn't pass. I have to say I was very annoyed. And so I took the whole year off. Now I had the luxury of doing that because I'm in practice for myself and I don't need the board certification to continue practicing. It's wonderful to have. But I decided, you know what, 2024, I'm going to take a break and I'm not going to take the exam. So I waited until 2025 to take it. And so people might ask, like, isn't this risky? Like, what if you forget things? Are you not going to be fresh? Because at this point, I am actually 4 years away from completing my fellowship program. People might even say, like, won't it look bad? And, you know, maybe yes, but it also doesn't look great if you take it again and you're not ready and you don't pass, right? So I needed time to recover. I needed time to deal with the anger that I had of not passing. I needed time to really do some soul searching and think about, like, do I want to take this exam? Why am I taking this exam? What is it going to be helpful for? I needed time to rebuild. I needed time to be with my family, as you know, and be in my practice. As you know, when we take these exams, we have to take time away from our work. We have to take time away from our family. And so I just needed a break from that, to be honest. And I wanted to be able to come back preparing for this test, not cramming, not in panic, not angry because I didn't pass. And so I decided taking 2024 off, and then in 2025, I'm going to map out my study period and the Notion template planner that I mentioned before. So in this planning, I included vacation time. I knew that it was going to fall during the summer and I didn't want to miss the summer for the sake of studying. So I put that in. I planned conferences. I had a conference to present. It was actually in my hometown where I grew up, and it wasn't something that I want to miss because I love that community, and I just felt like there was a lot I wanted to share with them. So I put that in. I also included family events, put that on the calendar, knew that, you know, if there were some things going on, I just wouldn't be able to study during those days. And then I also accounted for my clinic days, you know, when I was going to be able to study. I made a realistic plan. It wasn't a fantasy plan, right? Like the fantasy plan is I'm going to study 6 days a week for 3-4 hours a day. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I'll study 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night, right? For me, that would be a fantasy plan. That would be like, yeah, I think I can study this much time. I can study 2 hours before everyone gets up in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. For me, that wasn't realistic, right? So your plan should reflect your life, not the ideal version of yourself. It should reflect what actually happens. So I plan to study Monday through most Saturdays, but not every single one. And Sundays, I decided to take off. I made it there was a daily routine. I know that my mind is the freshest in the morning. Now, there was a time where I was able to study, get up at like 5 a.m., but with a newborn, that's not happening. So what I did was I blocked off the first couple of hours of my clinic, again, able to do that because I work for myself, but it was daily. Every day, I knew I was going to study at this time. It was a dedicated time. And so I knew I was going to start off with a lecture, listen to it, and then do my questions. And I knew exactly how many questions I was going to do every day, right? And I planned it out. So I knew that by X date, I was going to be able to get through the entire question bank, right? And I planned it out so that I would finish that question bank 2 weeks before the test. Now, there was time in there for me to have some lag, had some days that I didn't actually study. So I think I ended up actually finishing the Q Bank about a week before the exam, but it was still done before the exam. So same time every day. I think I scheduled from 8 to 11 or 8 to 10, same duration, 2 or 3 hours, even on the weekends, and then the same structure. For me, this worked. Lecture, questions, and then I made the flashcards that I didn't actually end up using. So the consistency builds momentum. It keeps you interested, or, it doesn't necessarily keep you interested, but the consistency builds momentum, and it helps you get things done. When your body gets into a rhythm, it gets into a routine, you can get things done. What I did to keep things interesting, because it can get monotonous to do this the same time every day, was I changed study locations. So some days I studied at home, some days I studied at this desk, some days I studied out in our kitchen, some days I might have studied outside. Some days I studied at coffee shops. This was a throwback to medical school. I used to love to explore the city's coffee shops while I was studying. And so I got to do a little bit of that this time, right? And there were some favorite places that I found. The vibe, excellent. Lots of big tables spread out. The drinks were great. Sometimes just being around the smell of coffee would be enough to excite me, wake up my brain. Of course, I'm going to get a cup while I'm there. And so for you, as we're thinking about scheduling, right? This is my takeaway too. I would say some practical things. Schedule your time. Maybe you can only do an hour a day. Maybe you can only do 2. But schedule it. Do it, I would say, as much as you can. Some of my students, it's helpful to only do 3 days a week, or that's all that they can commit. Some can get up to 5 or 6. And then build in rest days, days where you know you're going to rest and not feel guilty about it, right? You are not a machine, so we do need rest. And trust me, rest is a part of the strategy, right? We know that rest helps us consolidate memories. It helps us just really take in all of the information so that we can solidify it, combine it, put it together, and then put it out on test day. Here's another thing that I did differently thinking about routine. I had kind of a ritual. I did have a ritual, and I'm going to pause in terms of and show you what some of the things that I use every time that I study. So I'm going to grab something. I'll be right back. Okay, back. So I used the same sort of format, the same notebook every time that I study. I'm getting into the nitty-gritty and the details, but I just want you to have an example of what I did. So, 3-ring binder, kind of simple, kind of boring. Check out the picture from my son. Always have to have things that bring you joy. And so I, every day I had a page where I was going to take notes on my lectures. You can see my tabs. Let's see if I can get a better focus here. Anyway, I've got tabs for all of my lectures, and some of my videos on TikTok, you will see where I made sticky notes. This is what I decided was going to be a good system for me. Let me see if I can get some focus here. I really decided to take note of the things that I was missing on questions, right? Kinesthetic, incorporating my kinesthetic learning style. And I have a page for each lecture. So this was a way that, okay, if I've got a question on depression, I didn't get it right, I'm going to put a note here. So when I go back and study my depression section or my depression topic, I've got all of these notes here. Plus here are some common things that I missed. Anyway, this was a routine. I did this every single time. And so I had this whole notebook at the end where I could review. I used a set of pens, the same set of pens every time, right? Many colors. Again, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I'm visual, so I had to have these every time I went somewhere. I just liked it. I had the same thing every time. I had my pens. I had my solid black pen. Every single time. I would tend to sit in the similar places in coffee shops that I went to. So that's a sort of another routine or something that I built into the routine. Or I would sit in the same couple of places in my house. I also listened to some of the same playlists over and over. So I love to listen to Kate Trinata. He is a DJ. His music just really gives me a lot of good energy. And I also ended up listening to Alex Isley. For some reason, listening to her music just got me in the zone. It was enough to keep my interest, but not too much to make my brain feel busy. So Alex Isley, right? Started the same way every time, doing my lecture. I've mentioned this before. Then doing my questions, the same number of questions pretty much every time until I got to the end, or maybe it was a Saturday when I had more, and the same review process, right? Those sticky notes that I pulled up, I would make notes about the questions that I missed. What did I miss about that question? And I'm gonna put it up on my board to review later during the week. I did this the same week in, week out. Okay, so why is this routine important? Because predictability reduces anxiety. When everything feels chaotic, it feels like you're doing something different every day. It can be overwhelming for your brain. But when you have routine, it becomes your home base. So, a daily routine might look like a quick grounding exercise before you get started, your 10 questions to warm up. I'm just giving you an example that's maybe different from mine. Quick grounding exercise, doing 10 to 20 warm-up questions, doing a lecture, take a short break, do your second study block where you do the same thing over again, and then at the end, review and correct your questions, right? So that's just a sample. This means you're not having necessarily long marathon days, but you're doing things in short increments that are manageable and effective, right? We're not thinking about the study time as punishment. We're thinking about how to make it interesting, right? Going to places that you enjoy, using types of materials that you enjoy. Because if you make this a pleasurable thing, you're going to be more likely to retain the information. And we're not going to just start over with some new plan just because you didn't study perfectly that day, right? You're going to keep trying it. We're going to build consistency. All right, you've been sticking with me. This is a long video, but I hope that it's helpful. Let's talk about the thing that I did differently. Number 4, mindset. This is the most important thing. This is the most important thing. I'll say it again. This is the most important thing. Studying is easy when the material is easy. Studying is hard when your thoughts get in the way. And this is also probably hard material to study. So one of the mindset shifts that I did was I started with some gratitude. This might sound cheesy, might sound cliche, but it's so real, right? And I practiced having gratitude for having the resources to retake the exam. These exams are incredibly expensive. And so I'm grateful that I have not only the money, but also the actual materials. I can have access to the materials to take the exam. And I don't take that for granted. So having the resources, having a job that allows me to study. I don't take that for granted. That's not the case for everyone, right? Having the support of my family, my husband, my mom, my sister, all of the community that's around us to take the exam. So grateful for that and grateful for another chance. I don't take that for granted either, right? It could have been the case that I had run out of attempts, and that is the case for some of the students that I work with, right? They're on their last attempt. So I just take the time to be grateful for those things. Gratitude can really soften the anxiety that you have as you're entering into your study session. Mindset shift number 2. The score does not define me, right? This can take a long time to grab hold of. The first time I failed an exam, big exam, step 1, that really shook me. Am I smart enough? Can I do this? Am I going to be a doctor? And so I was telling myself a painful story, right? That maybe I'm not smart enough to get this done. So by the time I rolled around to my adult psychiatry boards, I knew this score doesn't define me. I'm not going to let this one exam define my worth. And so I took that into this child psychiatry exam that I just took. Not going to let it define my worth, my skill, my intelligence, or my future. And I reminded myself daily, all I need is just a few points to push me over the edge. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to score the top score. I don't need to master every page. I don't need to master every question. I just need enough to pass and continue doing the good work that I'm doing with patients. Mindset shift number 3. I thought about the patients who needed me. On the days where I felt like I didn't want to study, was mad that I had to take the exam again. I was thinking, okay, there's somebody out there who needs me to be ready to serve them, right? And so you can maybe say this exam is not totally about me, but it's about the people who I'm going to help, the kids that I'm going to treat, the families that I'm going to support, the child who has been on tons of medications and their family or even their pediatrician is not sure where to turn next. This is what I'm training for. I'm training to be that expert, to give an opinion, to help their lives. And so that purpose can fuel discipline. It can rejuvenate you and get you back in the game. Mindset shift number 4. This is temporary. The season isn't forever, right? This was my second time. The study period was a temporary investment. It was a short period of time, right? I decided to take, I think, 2.5 months, but it wasn't a life sentence. It's not going to last for the whole year. And so when you frame your study time as temporary, you can stop catastrophizing, right? Like you can stop thinking, I'm going to miss the entirety of my life. It's just a short period of time, and you can get down to business. So, final pieces of advice. If you're retaking your boards or thinking about retaking, hear this. You're not behind. You're not broken. You are not less of a physician or a student. You are someone who is learning how to do something incredibly difficult while being a human, while working, while being a parent, a daughter, a son, a sibling, right? We all have responsibilities. And honestly, it's what makes you resilient and strong. So please hear that. Please take that away, okay? So I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you want deeper support, I built a course called Test Anxiety No More. It's designed for high-achieving students and physicians who want a structured plan, tools for anxiety, strategies for focus, and a way to study without burning out. So if you're preparing for big exams like Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, the boards, or a licensing exam, this course can help you study more effectively and perform with confidence. You can enroll using the link below. Join us, get the support that you deserve, that you need, and let's make sure that your next attempt is the strongest yet, right? You've got the content. I'm going to help you with the mindset. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll have more videos that will hopefully help the people who need it. I'll see you next time.